That's the only problem with these delays.
Yeah, it's okay now.
Okay.
Your thing's
All right.
showing now.
We'll start rolling. Tonight, we're going to kind of dovetail off of the end of our last podcast. And Pastor Ford made a statement when we were asking about a scenario in which he was talking to a homosexual on the street and how he would handle something like that from the standpoint of not being stubborn and not beating somebody over the head, and how he would work reasonably with someone. Well, actually, I should say how a Christian should be working reasonably with people when they're talking and working with people. And he used the word, they have chosen a solution that is the wrong solution, and we have the right solution. Or what you were saying is, I have the solution, or I've experienced a solution that works. And so that's why I chose the topic for tonight, because everybody has a solution. But the question I have first, right off the bat, is what is the problem, or the ultimate problem, that a solution is needed for anyone?
Okay, so yeah, I'm just trying to think of whether or not we should try to reconnect with the whole conversations of from before. Because the context of the conversation was that talking about witnessing, talking to people about Jesus who are homosexuals, and not beating them over the head, and being able to have compassion and help them. The whole point is to help them to understand that they've chosen a wrong path for their lives,
Right.
and not which everybody does. It's not exclusive, and
Yeah.
that I think
Yeah.
there's a very important thing to kind of communicate. Because that is so getting to the path itself is the idea. The bottom line is that we were created by God, and God created us for with a specific purpose in mind, and that specific purpose is uh, according to His will. And so there has to be an understanding that every one of us has a purpose. It's not, I just finished reading a book called *Sapiens*, and
And you actually
it's
finished it?
I finished it, yeah. And atheists don't know anything about Christianity. I've come to the conclusion. I don't know if it's because of how they're taught in school or what, but they don't understand Christianity. They understand religion, but they don't understand Christianity. And it's interesting. There are big gaps and holes in atheism uh, that tries to explain. So they try to explain bits and pieces but leave out the most important pieces. The only way I can describe atheism is that it's like when you take a puzzle out of the box and you've put the border all the way around, and you go there, and you think you've actually finished the puzzle. And you have no idea what the puzzle looks like, because the border is only the first part of it. It's not the whole picture. And so that's the bottom line. The whole picture is that God loves us. He created us to have a relationship with Himself. We've gone our own way, but God is ultimately focusing on um, a people that are uh, um, created after His image and in His likeness, that are living as He lives, because He is the ultimate expression of good. And so that's the problem. The problem is we're not good.
Right. And so what I mean, so what is man's pursuit in general that would make them go in any path, on any direction? What makes somebody choose a solution like homosexual, or just sex in general, as
Uh,
their level of fulfillment? I read a little bit of Pascal, who says that man's pursuit across the board is happiness.
mhm.
Is that
Yeah,
true?
that's
Yeah.
that I was going that is exactly what I was going to say, is that is what drives us, is the idea of happiness or pleasure.
And so what exactly you know what is it in something like, what is the difference between the solution for man going in the direction of homosexuality, or and I'm just using that because that
Yeah.
was the context of what we were talking about, but or going in Christianity? And what's the real difference here? Are they both seeking happiness, and one just found happiness and
Yeah.
the other one's still searching? What's
Well, generally speaking, and I think we can probably go away from that, so we're not focusing specifically
Yeah.
on homosexuality, is the issue of sin. Is
Mhm.
that at the end of the day, any sinful pursuit is it detracts from happiness. You're not going to find happiness is found in finding meaning and finding purpose in life, and you're not going to find meaning or purpose in life through sin.
Mhm.
And so that's the issue: is that any course of sin is going to lead to a dead end. It's not going to lead to happiness.
Well, I was plenty happy in my sin. What's the
I think you should rewind and try that again. You were plenty happy in your sin all the time.
uh
Yeah?
No, not all the time, but
No?
Christians aren't happy all the time.
I am.
Are you? All the
Actually, I
time?
was thinking about this today.
And by the way,
And
you don't have to. I'm asking these questions
yeah,
because they're
I,
questions I get
I'm
asked.
yeah, yeah. I'm and I would I was just thinking it on the way over here. I'm probably the happiest man on the planet, or at least among the happiest men on the planet. So prove me wrong. I wake up in the morning
There's
happy.
no
I
way
go to bed
could.
happy. I don't, because I'm living my life the way God or designed it to be lived. And Buddha would call it nirvana.
Okay.
I don't know, other religions might call it something else, but I call it joy. I mean, that's really what it is.
Is there a difference
Is a
between
state of
happiness
joy.
and joy?
Well, yeah, I think so, because happiness is a dopamine thing.
Okay.
Joy is an all-time thing. It's a state of being. And so, yeah, yeah, I'd say what's his name? Steve Crowder. What does he say? I'm the happiest man in the world. Change my mind.
So you prove to me that people are unhappy. What is the thing
It
that?
isn't a question about being unhappy. It's a question of being dissatisfied.
Mhm,
They're always looking for something more.
mhm.
And the truth is that most people, including Christians, are always looking for more. And they get up in the morning with the idea in their mind that they, want to have a good day and things like that, but they're looking. There's always in the back of their mind that they wish that there was some other thing, that they don't have. Whether it's a better marriage or better family, better material possessions, whatever it is that most people function, and like I said, and many Christians function from the standpoint of they're not they're not uh, they're not happy because there are things in their lives that they're still wanting to achieve, things that they're still wanting to have happen, and that's the source of their happiness, is their achievement, or it's the way that it was described in this book Sapiens that I had read, is the idea that the Buddha and Buddhists, the foundation of Buddhism is the idea that people either are craving or avoiding, and that's the way that most people spend their lives. Is they're either craving something that they don't have or avoiding something that they don't want in their lives. And so the ultimate state of being is to understand that craving and avoiding is not the way to live. As I read that, I thought, oh, I'd be a great Buddhist, because that's how I live. That's exactly how I live. I don't live craving or avoiding. I'm not trying to avoid pain or trying to fulfill some craving.
Can you have joy and not be happy? It's from Brittany. By the way, again, Brittany asks everybody in questions. So you guys got to step it up a little bit.
Yeah. No, I don't think
there's context here. At
Yeah.
any given time, I don't mean happy as a general disposition. Basically, if there are times when you aren't happy, does that mean you don't have joy?
Well, yeah, that's hard to separate out, because being joy joy is not an unemotional state of being. There is an emotional element to it. And so, yeah, I would say, when you have, being happy, um I mean, it's 'cause we're talking about, okay, so like for a nanosecond, if you're not happy, you can still have joy, maybe even for 10 minutes, but I don't know what time limit there is that when you're not happy, you no longer have joy. I can't, I can't answer the time limit. I don't know, maybe an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. I don't know what hour that I would actually say that you can go with just joy and not have happiness.
So you're going to have to really define the difference between the two.
Well, see, this is what's hard.
Yeah,
Is
but you
because
but you
jo-
have
well,
to, because
because
if people are
joy is a
pursuing
state of
happiness,
being. Yeah, joy is a state of being.
right?
Okay, happiness is is dopamine. It's a state of mind. It's the way that your mind works. Joy is a state of your soul. Happiness is a state of your mind, and so the two can not they're not connected to each other. But You can't be in a joyful state and be unhappy for an extended period of time. No.
So, if you've never been, I don't want to say satisfied because it's just too simple, but you're talking about the difference between your life and somebody who is wondering, or looking, or going back to the issue of sin and looking for happiness, but never finding real happiness or joy. If you've never actually experienced joy, then how do you know what you're missing? And how could you ever actually identify the fact that you are truly unsatisfied?
Well, I don't think you have to worry from the standpoint of some kind of a connection between joy and satisfaction. Dissatisfaction is something that's apparent. You know when you're dissatisfied.
Mhm.
You know. If you are dissatisfied, then you are not. You are lacking joy. Because you won't be dissatisfied and have joy at the same time. Because joy is, by definition, a measure of
Do you
satisfaction,
never
a contentment.
do you have desire for more? Let me
Uh,
ask you that this way: do you experience disappointment?
yeah.
But disappointment is kind of
No.
expectations being unfulfilled, isn't it?
No. Disappointment when something doesn't go the way that I want it to go, but it's so I'm gonna sound like a Buddhist here. If anybody who's familiar with Buddhism, it's you can be sad in the moment and still have joy.
Mm.
But when it becomes, I don't want this anymore. I want to be another way. You're no longer It's no longer sadness in the moment. I've got to get rid of this. And so, like if somebody dies, you're going to grieve, but that doesn't mean that you don't have joy. You can grieve, but that's in the moment. It's not, I don't want to be grieving right now. I don't want to be in this. I don't want to have this pain. Now you're going to affect joy because you've changed from a soul, the focus on your soul and where your soul is, and your frame of mind.
Isn't that just like lacking certain emotions? I mean, I'm trying to find out where
Yeah,
this is
no.
unique to Christianity.
Where it's unique to Christianity,
Yeah.
well, you can't actually have true joy without Jesus. That's just not even physically possible.
Wow.
Yeah, because joy, again, like I said, it's a state of being. Jesus said, or actually, it's a scripture in the Bible. It talks about having joy unspeakable and full of glory. That this is a gift from God. This is not something that we work up in ourselves. Like I said, it's a state of being.
So, I mean, how do you know that, you know, there aren't I got asked this question the other day, actually. How do you know that there aren't many paths leading to the same location? This is because you're talking about this context
Yeah,
of paths. Somebody's
yeah,
chosen a path of sin or
yeah.
whatever, but you also have people who choose paths of, quote unquote righteousness or uh, we'll
Well,
just
they're
say
not
we'll just
really
say purely
choosing paths.
religion. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not choosing paths of righteousness.
I'm
It's
just using
yeah,
that. It's not specific to
yeah.
that, but
Yeah, because one of the foundational understandings of Christianity is that all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And so without Jesus, that stain is going to be there. And so the idea of being able to achieve this state of being that I'm referring to as joy is impossible without your sins forgiven. So you have to have your sins forgiven. That has to be the beginning. Otherwise, you're going to have this burden that even if your life was perfect in every way, is still going to be there because you can't get rid of that.
mhm.
It's stuff that you have done. It's things that you have done. It's ways of thinking that you have done, and there's subtle things that undermine that state of being. Peace probably would be another kind of a connection to that joy and peace. The Bible talks about the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, loving kindness, gentleness, meekness, self control. These are all things that are exclusive to the Spirit of God. These are not these are not things. When people say they have peace, they don't. It's a pseudo peace. All these are kind of pseudo factors, but they are completely fulfilled in the Spirit of God. And when you are walking in the Spirit, then those things are going to be active in your own life. And so to walk in the Spirit, you have to be Jesus has to live inside of you, and there has to be salvation. You have to be saved. I mean, that's all there is to it. So you can't experience this outside of salvation. The interesting thing in this book I mentioned, *Sapiens*, is that he talks about how this was Buddhist theology.
I was just
You
literally
know,
going to quote that.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is Buddhist theology, but he afterwards he says 99% of Buddhists don't even
Yeah.
live this
Well,
way.
what was specifically what quote what was the theology specifically? Do you remember offhand?
Well, just what I just described.
Yeah, but he
You know.
used something specific. It was like abstain from abstinence
Oh,
from
okay,
certain
yeah.
things.
Well,
Yeah.
he mentioned
Yeah.
Buddha mentioned that there were three things: the murder, um, sexual promiscuity, and theft.
Mm.
Those were kind of his three things, which obviously came from Christianity.
Yeah.
That thou shouldn't the ten. I'm sorry for those who are more purist. They came from the Old Testament, from the Ten Commandments.
Okay. Yeah, keep going. You
Yeah.
were finishing a thought.
So where was I?
You were talking about how this was Buddhist theology, but 99%.
Oh yeah, they don't follow it. Yeah, and the Buddhists don't follow it, and so that was kind of the end of my statement.
Oh.
Is that they don't follow it because it's the ideal of Buddhism, but yet if you see Buddhism in action, you'll see that there are all kinds of Buddhists. Well, anybody who knows anything about Buddhists in terms of like Eastern. Actual proper Eastern Buddhists is they're not peace-loving people. They're very violent people, and they're very opposed to people who are opposed to their beliefs, and kind of violate all the principles that Buddha actually stood for.
So you're going to have to lay up a little bit of proof on this. Like what, how you, because you're talking about, again, you're talking about something that you're saying everybody feels this sense of guilt or lack of peace. But if you've never actually experienced peace, how do you really know that's even there?
Well,
How do you
I think,
identify that?
well, because I think it's written in every heart, every human
Did you
heart.
feel that before you got saved?
Oh,
You
yeah.
had no interest in getting saved or
No.
giving your life to Jesus or
No.
anything like that. You actually felt unsatisfied.
Yeah, I didn't know why I was alive. I didn't know what my purpose for being here was. I had no idea. I was just kind of meandering through life, and everything I tried was like, that's not it. So it wasn't that I tried all kinds of bad things and these bad things were weighing heavy on me. Even the good things, it was like, that's not it. It really didn't matter.
We got a question here, a little backtracking. Says you mentioned you're living a life that God intended. I know people that would understand that as you have a perfect life. How would you respond to that? Somebody just saying, "Oh, well, you just have a perfect life," or thinking
Okay.
that means you have a perfect life.
All right. Change my mind.
No, you changed my mind.
Why do I need to change your mind about my life?
No,
if I think my
but
life
you're
is
talking
perfect,
about
then
no.
why do I need
So
to change
so
your mind?
we're talking about in comparison though. You have a solution that works. I have a solution that doesn't. Convince me of that. How do you? So that's what I mean. Is like you can't. How can you prove to me that what I'm that I'm actually feeling guilt and unsatisfaction? Everybody has desires to move forward and gain more.
I can't prove that to you. You have to admit it in yourself. I can't prove that. There's no need for me to prove it. Because the truth of the matter is if you don't feel that sense as a non-Christian, if you don't feel that sense of a lack of purpose, then you're just lying to yourself.
Mhm.
Because everybody does. The way that an atheist handles that is by saying there is no purpose. Atheists don't say, I found my purpose. They say there is no purpose.
Mhm.
Purpose, the idea of meaning and purpose is only in God. And you could say that there might be religious people who would say that they found their purpose, but the truth of the matter is that I obviously haven't talked to all 7.5 billion people in the world, but I've yet to meet a single religious person when I have shared my peace and what has happened in my life that said, "Oh yeah, no, mine's the same way." It's just not like that, because most people, even if they have a religious belief, they have a worldly they have worldly entanglements, and so they're not free from that. They're not free from the things of this life. They're not free from the pull of materialism or the pull of ambition. Those kinds of things. I mean, it's all over the place. It's not. I was just listening on the way up here to. I finished that book, so I started another book, C.S. Lewis, And C.S. Lewis was talking about, he was doing a lecture to students about what he called the inner ring. And he's talking about how, as these students go into life, he says one of the things which is a worldliness is the desire to be part of an inner ring of people. That there'll be people, and you'll have an opportunity to be able to become a part of that inner ring with those people, but it's an exclusive club thing. And so that he says this is a real temptation to want to be a part of that in crowd, and that you have to avoid the pull of that in crowd, because that in crowd is just another empty way of living. And so it manifests itself in so many different ways. Worldliness just manifests in so many different ways. The only way you can actually be free from worldliness is through an intimate personal relationship with Jesus.
So what about like the different desires that man has? The desire for love, the desire for success, the desire for is this all like just you have different desires? Is that all encompassed in an actual need for meaning? Like, is there some kind of innate need for meaning in man that some people just cut off by saying there is no meaning?
The need for meaning is not fulfilled in success. The need for meaning is not fulfilled in love. These are
No, I'm saying the other way around. Is the need for love found in meaning? Like, or is it fulfilled in meaning? I mean, when you
the need for love, is it fulfilled in meaning?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It's not. No, the focal point of life is to make. I mean, it's you're separating out things that are really difficult because they overlap each other, but they're not the same thing, even though they overlap. Because God created us to love one another.
Yeah.
So loving one another is a part of finding meaning in life and having purpose.
That's exactly what I'm asking. Yeah.
But it's not a requirement. And it's like, well, if I found meaning in life, then I don't need to have love in my life. No, but you don't need to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a spouse, in order to experience love. So you can't. That's why you have to be careful with these things, because
I'm just using those as light examples.
Well, because there's a worldly version of these things, and then there's a godly version of these things, and so they're not the same things. And that's got to be a factor. Is you can be unmarried and find meaning and fulfillment and purpose in life. It's not, you don't have to be married. But God created marriage. And He said it's not good for man to be alone. So. Again, like I said, see, these things overlap each other, but they're not symbiotic.
Yeah,
they're not
okay,
required to make each other
then.
work.
If I was alone on a desert island, could I find meaning?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'm asking.
Yes.
So you have all these different desires that go all over the place, whether
Yes,
worldly or not.
if you woke up from a coma and you realized that you were on a ship that crashed into a desert island and you had a personal relationship with Jesus and you had no idea when you were going to be rescued, yes, you would have meaning and purpose. And your meaning and purpose would be on that island, waking up from a coma. That would be your meaning and purpose for that moment.
Yes. So it's your belief of having found your purpose in life that has convinced you you're living how God intended.
No.
No, expound, please.
I believe that I'm living the way God intended because I obey the Bible.
So what tactic do you take with people when you're talking to people? So we go back to scenario based. When you're talking to people who have a bad solution or have chosen something, it's obviously taken them a million miles away from God. How do you convince somebody to come to your side? I don't know another way to say it.
Well, I think I often
because let me premise it. You're because you're talking about things that's so deeply ingrained in a lot of people, mindsets, culture, the way you were raised, the way you have experienced life, even in recent years of your life. These things can just be like deeply ingrained in people and hard to shake. And just oh, I found the solution. Okay, let's just go some other way. That just seems impossible.
You didn't finish question in
No,
that.
that was the question. How do you convince somebody to come
Oh,
from something
okay.
like that? So the
Yeah.
premise of
Okay.
how deep things can go with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah. Well, I can't. That's at my hope is that these things are not so deep that they've become essentials in their lives.
But define that. Like, give me an example of something that would be an essential that would be
Well,
problematic.
if I can convince you that God's real, are you going to get saved? And if the answer is no, then they obviously have something in their life that's essential that they're not willing to get rid of.
Okay.
And so that's my first hope is that they're not holding on to things that they think are essential to life because I can't. There's nothing I can do with that. I've if I kind of summarize, over the last, especially over the last week of the number of people that I've talked to, say a dozen or more people that I've talked to, there was only one time where I knew that I absolutely could not. There was nothing that I would be able to do to be able to influence this person, mainly because they didn't take life seriously. They said they don't really care about truth. They don't really care about, taking life seriously. And even if they aren't living the life that they could be living, they don't really care. So really, when it becomes the when somebody's serious about life, then the things that we're talking about right now are going to be important to them. And the things that are deeply ingrained in them are not going to be, I've got to have a lot of money, I've got to have a car, I've got to have this, I've got to have that. It's going to be, I need more than what I'm experiencing. And so it's more of a nagging. When somebody's really serious about life and they really do contemplate life at any kind of deep level, there's always going to be that kind of a longing, and the truth is that Jesus is the longing of the human heart.
Why is it that so few people get that? I mean, that's even scriptural. Why?
Yeah.
Why is it that so few people find or discover or are shown that solution?
Um,
What's the
yeah. Well, it's what it comes down to is the pride of man. Is that it really is about pride. When I say that I'm the happiest man on the planet, or at least among the happiest men on the planet, the reason why I can say that is because I'm not. I don't think I discovered all this. I don't think I was the one who engineered my happiness or my joy. I found it the way Jesus said to find it. He who loves his life shall lose it, but he who loses his life for my sake shall find it. And so I lost my life when I got saved. Um, I literally quit life. I mean, I didn't just quit things. I quit life, everything. It didn't matter what it was. Everything was up for negotiation with God. I was into punk rock, and I even stopped that. I didn't have to. You don't have to not listen to punk rock music in order to be saved. It's not a requirement. It was something that I was part of my pursuit of life, my pursuit of meaning. So now it didn't matter anymore. Didn't matter if it could stay, it stayed. If it could go, if it needed to go, it needed to go. But it was neither. It was just something that I just had no desire for anymore. I listen to music, and I listen to all kinds of music. In fact, if to be more clear about it, is I over the years I'm learning to enjoy life in general more and more and more. Not the specific things that I was into, and that happened because I stopped specializing in Dave Ford, and started specializing in being a Christian and
yeah?
following Jesus.
So I'm going to come back to that whole specialized thing, that because we've had that conversation before. But doesn't your statement saying I didn't discover this, doesn't that kind of take the responsibility out of your hands and put it in?
Well, when I say I didn't discover it, I'm talking about what I said about being the happiest man on the planet.
Mhm.
I didn't go. I mean, I did discover it, but I didn't do anything in order to achieve it. That's really more what I mean. The idea of discovering it is, I can't even call that a discovery because, if somebody smacks you on the back of the head and says, "Look over there, did you discover it?" No, you just got your head hit and surprised, and you looked and saw something you didn't see before.
Mhm,
And that's what Christianity was.
mhm.
It's like God came up, went, "Hey, wake up," and oh, I didn't even know this was real. Because I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't looking to be saved. It wasn't of my quest in life.
Mhm. So what about, how do you a lot of people that tout the solution that you're talking about, they tout Jesus, they tout the Bible, they boast in their own relationship with God, but, you know, if we look at their lives, they really don't show the results of the solution you're talking about. They don't seem satisfied. They don't seem, you know, uh, joyful. The way you're
Yeah,
describing was so much like that. How
yeah,
how is someone to
yeah.
believe that this is really the right way?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question because that's true, and that's the funny thing is reading through this book, *Sapiens*, because it's a book on the evolutionary uh, um, progression of mankind. It threads in there religion, and then takes shots at religion, and basically one of the premises, and I don't know how much this is general atheism or not, but one of the premises is that the reason why we were able to grow into a society is because of our belief in common fiction, and that there were actually things that were a common fiction. So like religion, believing in God in general, that was a binding thing that binded people together to a fiction. The idea of meaning, the idea of purpose. The book later on goes into the idea of capitalism. That capitalism is basically the belief, that a free market is gives meaning and purpose to life. So it's all those kinds of things that are kind of mixed into that. And so um when you have people that claim to be Christians that fill that stereotype of just they believe something, but you can see that it's not really who they are. It undermines the truth behind it, and so it is a real it's a difficult thing for me as a Christian. I find myself often having to, in the middle of a conversation, to say, no, 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 that's not Christianity. I know you've seen that. I know you've grown up in that. I know you have friends like that. I know people like this.
Mhm.
But that's not Christianity. And just flat have to tell them that's not Christianity. It's just, I'm sorry, it's just not Christianity. And even with people within church, the number of conversations that I'm having with people trying to correct them and tell him, listen, do you not understand, Matthew 7, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. That there's, when you act like a hypocrite, when you live like a hypocrite, you put yourself in jeopardy. There's a very good possibility that you're going to be one of those people. If that's how you live your life, you're going to be one of those people that are going to be shocked and realize I'm going to go to hell with all the unbelievers
Mhm.
you know and so not only are these pseudo Christians causing problems for people being saved, they're actually going to end up going to the same place. So it's a real, it's a real dangerous way to live. And this false Christian idea of these religious check boxes that like I always say, get out of hell free cards. Oh, I believe this doctrine. Well, that's part of the fiction. You believe a doctrine, and that's part of the fiction, and that's part of the fiction which binds the world together in religion. Or capitalism or communism or anything else. It's just another worldly method of trying to find purpose and meaning in life, but it's not the real thing.
So what did you see when you first, like what let me ask you this. What was the first time you ever noticed somebody actually have joy? And how did it differ from what you had seen before?
Well, I don't know that I would say what the first time I saw somebody have joy as much as I would say the first time that I met somebody that I was pretty confident was a genuine Christian,
Mhm.
because the issue of joy, it's not,
Well, yeah, that's what I'm asking though. Like
yeah,
something different. This guy's
yeah,
got something
yeah,
different.
yeah. I mentioned it in one of our other podcasts of
I'm
being
sure
at
you've
a,
mentioned a lot
yeah,
of stuff
at
we're
a
talking
at
about.
a at a I was invited. I was 16 and I was invited to a church camp. I'd already kind of written off the whole idea of the church camp thing as religion, because I was invited to this church camp and I could see the whole thing was a hoax. I mean, it literally was a hoax. It was a bunch of self-righteous people who were pretending, masquerading as Christians. But when we got to that camp, because now we're really in close quarters, it's casual, we're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner together, we're waking up together, we're going to bed together. Guys and girls are separated, but but guys and girls are, doing things that they shouldn't be doing. And even at the leadership level of things that were happening that were, I mean, they weren't even really like wicked things. They were just worldly things. They were just like the people that I knew before. From outside. I grew up in a non-religious home, and so everybody that I knew for the most part was non-religious, and so these people were no different. They were no different than non-religious people. They just had a religion. But there was one guy, and I mentioned, about the shaving cream incident where
Mm.
we shaving creamed this guy, and he woke up and very calm, just kind of smiled and said, "Oh, you guys got me." Was very much in control of himself, and I could tell there was more to him than the rest of them. I mean, out of the entire camp, he stood out, including the leaders, including the youth leaders and stuff like that. Emotions and things being said that shouldn't be said, and stuff like that. This guy just it had an impact on me. I thought, wow, if there is a such thing as a real Christian, he's definitely one of them.
Mhm. So did that convince you in any direction,
It
or did that
didn't.
just like stick in
Well,
your
it didn't
mind?
convince me because they they never talked about any of this. It
Yeah.
was just which is another problem. Is that those who are real Christians are not evangelical. So you've got it's not only do you have crazy Christians who unfortunately are evangelical, and then you've got good Christians that are not evangelical. They're not taking this to the other people. And so because I would have been interested. I know I would have. I would have been
You
interested
mean if
if this
that guy
if
had
that
like,
guy had
yeah,
started talking to me about life and why he was the way he was. I know I would have taken an interest because I took an interest already. Just simply because of his behavior. I could tell there was something different about him.
so what do you think people should look for then? People who are, let's just say we're talking about people that they identify. I've been trying tons of different things. I'm totally unsatisfied. I'm not happy in life. But when I look at the general Christian population, that doesn't attract me either.
Yeah.
What do you look for?
Yeah, yeah. The only thing I can say to that is that there is a real thing, and the real thing for me was only found experimentally. I prayed and asked Jesus to come into my life, and I was willing to surrender everything to that. Until you can come to that point. And the funny thing is that I have presented that challenge to many people over the years, and just simply explained to them, listen, I will pray with you right now, and you can receive Jesus as your Lord and Savior right now, and you can know that this is true right now. And they say, no, I don't believe it. Oh, well, you want evidence, you want physical proof. I'm about to give you physical proof, but you don't want that physical proof.
Yeah.
And then you get the silly idea as well. How do you know you're not brainwashed? How do you know that you didn't just uh, you just wanted to believe this, all this kind of stuff.
Sounds like you've heard this
You know,
before.
well, it's funny about it. I've heard it a lot. And the truth is that the sheer arrogance of one human being telling another human being what happened to them,
Yeah.
and you weren't even there when it
Yeah.
happened. I mean, there really is no greater lack of self-awareness than when one human being tells another human being about what they are. It just, I mean, talk about, having your head deep up where the sun doesn't shine, you know.
I'm not sure we're allowed to say that on YouTube. Oops.
It's just
Thanks.
it's just, I mean, I just unfathomable. I would never dare to tell somebody about themselves. No, you are this, you are that. No, you are this. If we're having a conversation and they're saying things during the conversation, I may say, well, you just said this and now you're saying that. That's a contradiction. But that's based on the fact that they're saying things right then and there that I have the information.
Yeah.
But to say, no, I wasn't there, but I know everything. And so what you actually did was you were because you smoke pot. As soon as I say smoke pot, they go, ah, yeah, like, and well, when they say that, the funny thing is when they say that, I think, oh, I'm talking to somebody who's never smoked pot before, because they wouldn't say that. They wouldn't say,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right, you smoke pot. And see, and that's what happened is you started going down that road. It's like, well, actually what happened is the first time I smoked pot, I fell madly in love with it.
Yeah.
And it was like, this is the greatest thing I ever found in my life. I wasn't going, oh my word, what's happening to me? My life is going down the tubes. Now I'm smoking pot. It was like, I wish I would have found this earlier.
Yeah,
So when somebody goes, I know they don't have a drug background.
yeah.
Or if they have a drug background, it was very, very messy.
Yeah.
It's nothing like what I
Right.
experienced. But anyway, so that whole idea, is just so silly anyway.
So let's go back to specializing in things. We had this conversation a little bit the other day, and we were talking about the idea of living in a box. This kind of segment, if you will, is of the podcast can really go in many directions as far as who it touches. But the truth is, a lot of people live in a box, and we mentioned this the other day.
Yeah.
When you're specializing in things, right? And this is like the focus. You just live in a comfort zone all the time. How do you break out of that? Because the truth is, if you're doing the same thing over and over and over again and living an unsatisfied life, then you are in fact living in a box.
Yeah.
And so how do you break out of the box mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally,
Yeah.
physically? There's all kinds of boundaries there, like I said.
Yeah. Well, you have to break out of the stereotypes of thinking. I think that's got to be the first thing is, just because this is the way a lot of people think doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to think. I can give some just really quick examples of just the habit of my life that helps me to be able to easily avoid living in a box. Just listening to another C.S. Lewis book mentioning about anthropomorphizing, which is the idea of putting the Bible and the things in the Bible in human form, in human understanding. Uh, you know, so like for example, the idea of heaven. Is heaven going to have a chair, that God's going to sit on? And then to the right of that chair is going to be another littler chair that Jesus is going to sit on.
Yeah.
And I never thought of it. Okay.
Yeah.
I never thought of it. Actually, when I think about heaven, I don't really get pictures. I don't have any real pictures in my mind of what heaven is like. It's quite blank, actually, because I have no idea. The Bible doesn't give us a real description of what heaven's going to be like. So there's not a lot of vivid imagery of what heaven's going to be like. Anyway, and so but God, especially, even if you want to be more specific, God the Father never had and never is going to have a body. And so it's really hard for somebody who doesn't have a body to sit on a chair. And so it's like, okay, fine. That doesn't affect my Christianity. That doesn't make me disbelieve what the scriptures teach. When the scriptures say that Jesus ascended back into heaven and sat down at the right hand of his Father in glory, I don't read that and go, well, this is obviously fictitious because this is representing something that's not even physically possible. No, because the obvious answer is it's written for human beings. I thought about it from the standpoint. So here's, 'cause some of the questions around Revelations. Could you imagine if in John, so here's a book that's written in the first century. Okay, and so here John goes into a description of an Apache helicopter that's come down and it's firing missiles.
Mhm. Yeah.
What would he
reference point?
How would he relate to that?
Yeah.
How would he relate to that? Huge scorpions with stingers. Okay, well, okay, I can get a picture of a huge scorpion with a stinger.
Yeah.
But not an Apache helicopter. So why is this a big problem? The Bible was written so that we could understand the things of God, not so that we could have a full length movie of what
Yeah.
heaven's going to be like. Especially when heaven is quite clearly a place that's nothing like Earth. In many ways, it's going to be so different from Earth. So that doesn't have to be a problem. Just something the other day, and this was a friend of mine's wife actually mentioned this about not eating meat in heaven.
Oh, yes,
you
we had
know,
this conversation. Very
and
depressing conversation.
and so my first thought was, again, I didn't know what we were going to eat in heaven. I never even had an idea. I didn't see a picture of me in heaven with a leg of lamb, chewing on a leg of lamb. I didn't have any picture because I have no idea what it's going to be like.
Yeah.
But when she said that, I thought, that makes sense because there's going to be no more death, and we're certainly not going to be eating living animals. That would be weird. And
Yeah.
so okay. So, but it doesn't change anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't change the narrative, not even one iota. These are just simply things that I have integrated into my beliefs that now need to be removed. I mean, they're because they're things that I put on there, not things that God put on there. So it's not a big problem, and I don't worry about those kinds of things. But I don't have these big doctrines. I'm not I'm not an animal rights person because
Yeah.
all of a sudden I realize we're not going to be eating meat in heaven, so I'm going to go on a big tirade about how animals are being treated. But having said that, one of my wife's friends' complaints and concerns was how animals are being treated. And actually, in that book *Sapiens*, he actually mentions some of the procedures that by how we've been able to maximize our food supply by really, I mean, for all intents and purposes, there's no two ways around this. Abusing animals, we're taking these animals and turning them into food machines. I mean, that's literally what we're making them into. So you've got a chicken that may want to poke around and go on the ground and stuff. Then we make them sit in a little box like this and pump out eggs. And then after, and if they're lucky,
Yeah.
and if they're not lucky, we kill them after 4 months because a chicken is 4 months is full grown. And so it's like, well, congratulations, welcome to the world of 4-month-olds.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be dead in 4 months. And I can look at all that kind of stuff, and I can sympathize with her.
Mhm.
And if she wants to be a vegetarian because of that, fine. It makes me think twice about being a meat eater when I think about that kind of stuff. It's like, this is kind of bad stuff, And so, but I don't have to agree with things that people do in the abusing of animals and say, well, I'm gonna stop being a meat eater because people abuse animals. This isn't right across the board. You do have groups that are trying to create humane environments for animals and stuff like that, and the whole organic thing.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. And so again, but my whole point in this is that I'm not in a box. I can move around.
Yeah.
I can move around with these things.
Right.
If somebody wants to be a vegan, that's fine. They can be a Christian and be a vegan.
You're talking about this from your perspective, which if so, we're going back to.
I'm talking about it from the standpoint of Christianity.
Yeah, no, hold on. I know, I get it, but we're
not being
talking
in a
about
box.
Right. But if you're a Christian, technically, you shouldn't be in a box. You should be living the way you're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the big problem.
Okay. Now that's my question. I'm going to go back to my original question. Talk about people who are in the box. How do you get out of it?
Well, that's why I explained it the way I explained it.
Right.
You have to get out of the box by getting out of the box. You have to stop buying into stereotypical mindsets. And start reading the Bible for yourself and start thinking. I mean, you have to start thinking outside of the box.
Mhm.
You have to start being willing to consider. That's why I read the book *Sapiens*. The *Sapiens* is a book about it's evolution. It's an evolutionist who's trying to tell us how Homo sapiens arrived and thrived.
Mhm.
And that's the whole idea, and where they're going. And a lot of the things that he says, is like he throws this little dig about intelligent design, and he talks about that we are going to come to a place where mankind is by intelligent design. It's going to be by super advanced humans, and we're going to be making bionic parts for them and stuff like that. We'll be able to back up our brains on a hard drive.
The book actually says this.
Yeah, he talks about all this in the end. He's talking about the future and the
Yeah.
potential and all that kind of stuff, and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, and so the atheist point of view on this is if this is all true, then God doesn't exist. And it's like, if you can back up your brain on a hard drive, how does that make God not real? And it doesn't. It's that it's not a requirement. It's not a requirement. And one of the big things that they say is, well, when they wanted to map out the universe, they didn't go to the Bible. And it's like, What do you think the Bible is? You think the Bible is like the last book for mankind? And every piece of information that you need is going to be contained in the Bible. And the Bible even tells us specifically that all the things that Jesus did, I mean, that's not even everything. All the things that Jesus did, if they were to be contained the world would not be able to hold all the books,
Yeah.
you know. And so here's the Bible telling you, listen, this is only pertinent information. This is not everything. And then to have some foolish and silly atheists to say, well, see, you don't go to the Bible when you want to find a map of the world. Uh, duh,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, yeah, but you don't go to the dictionary either.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
It's
Well, okay,
like,
but see
come
now
on.
you're talking about, I'm just going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, but you're talking about a box arguing with a box. So like I said, you have the example of a lot
Well,
of Christians who live in boxes
yeah.
as well. Their
Well,
box is their religion. They
see,
have no intelligence outside this.
that's the
This,
funny thing is that atheists and religious people are both in boxes.
yeah,
Yeah, they're both in boxes.
exactly.
They only believe what they believe. They live in this little world, and all the everything has to line up.
Yeah.
The way that it is. It's funny because I thought about this. If I was to write down, 1 + 2 plus times 3 plus 4 times 5 plus 6, and I was to start over here and say, okay, so that's 1, and then 1 + 2 is 3, and then 3 times 3 is 9. Fail. That's not how it works. So I could go all the way through that and I could come up with a number and go there. That's what that means. And all I have to do is leave out one rule. And that rule is that you do the multiplication before you do the addition.
Mhm.
Just have to leave that one rule out and I've got the wrong answer. And that's what religious people do and that's what atheists do. That's what most people do is that they think that they can use the rules that they want in order to figure out life. And it doesn't work like that.
Mhm.
You have to have all the rules. And the rules are ordained by God. And the rules are written in the scripture.
Mhm.
See, that's the whole point of the scriptures, is the scriptures give us the rules of how life works. The rules are in there. And from there, you can figure out everything else. You can figure out how you can go um, from uh, uh, Spain to America. You know, well, Noah made an ark, so that's how you can get from Spain to America. I said, well, what if you don't know what's out there? Well, Noah didn't know what was out there. Worked out for him.
Mhm.
So my point being is that you don't have to have everything. It's not this idea that you have to have, this huge rule book with a million billion rules in it. Is that if you understand the general principles of Christianity, if you understand it well enough, then you can figure out life. You can make life work. And all the things going back to the beginning of everything that we've been talking about is that's why I know that I'm probably one of the happiest people on the planet, or at least I'm among the happiest people that live on the planet, is because I know that I know how life works, and it's not that I've drilled everything down to its smallest components. It's that I understand the basics. I understand I have the foundation and I can build anything on that foundation because I have the right foundation.
Mhm. So could anybody just pick up the Bible and be convinced? Or does it take something?
Well, like I said, you have to, if you have these, pre-existing essentials, no, you won't. You won't. That's always the case. Is somebody who sits down to the Bible with essentials that have to remain in their lives. They'll get to points in the Bible where the Bible says, "Okay, this is the exit from your essential." Nope, not going to do it. And they won't learn anymore.
Simplify that for me. Like, give me a name for the process. What's the mindset you need to have
Well,
in order
God
to get into
reveals
that?
as you're reading the scriptures, God's revealing how life works.
Mhm.
Because it's a living book. It's not just just not something you just read and get everything out of it. It's God revealing it to you. And as long as your heart's open, God will reveal it to you. But when you get to a point, I mean, think about this. Okay, so here's Cain and Abel, right? They've seen God physically. Okay, they've had well, I can't say they've seen him physically, but they've certainly talked with him and are familiar with his existence. And then Cain kills Abel. How are you capable of doing something like that? And then when God tells him what he's done, he turns around and fine, fine, it's cool. I'm cool with that. It's not all he does is just clarify terms. He
Mhm.
doesn't say no, no, no. I don't want this to be the case. He's like, okay, cool, fine. I don't ever have to see you again. I'm all right with that. I mean, you could even go with the devil. Here the devil probably had even greater revelation than Cain. He saw God, knew everything about God, knew of God's all power, his all knowing. Knew all the attributes of God, but still says because he knows that he has a framework that he can work within. We call it free will. You can call it whatever you want. But he knows that there's this framework of liberty that he can work within, and says, you know what? I think this gives me enough room to be able to do whatever I want to do. So I'm gonna do that. I don't know. I reject you as God. I reject you as the leader of the universe. I'm going to work outside uh, of the leadership of God, and he was able to do that, and God allowed this. Now, you're going to have a hard time trying to figure that out, and in the human mind of how God could allow that to happen. But he did, and it allowed for all kinds of chaos in the world and evil in the world, and that here's another example of in that book, Sapiens. He makes a statement, and he talks about how, well, the monotheist is okay with order but doesn't understand evil, which that's not true, because I'm a monotheist and I have no problem in understanding evil. And then he says the polytheist understands evil but doesn't understand order. And so, these are both assumptions that are not true. At least the monotheist part of it is not true. He said the only solution is for the monotheist is that God is there is a God and he is evil. And I said, I don't have a problem with that. Don't have a problem at all. God is real and God is evil. Okay. I don't have a problem with that, because I know when we say God is evil, we're talking about human understanding.
Mhm.
And according to human understanding, God is evil. I mean, it's as simple as that. The problem is our definition of evil is wrong.
Yeah.
That's the problem. So that's what I mean about thinking outside the box. Is here's this guy he thinks he's got all of Christianity corralled. Oh, those monotheists, they can't deal with evil, because to admit that there's evil means that there are two equal powers. There's God and then there's the devil. Either that or God allows evil, and so therefore God is the author of evil. Well, you're right on all accounts. God is evil. God is the author of evil. He's the one who let this go. He allows the devil to do these things. Horrible things happen when these things happen. I don't have a problem with any of this, because the issue is your definition of what evil and good are. And that's where the problem lies. Is it's the human definition of good and evil. Because when you understand that God is good and you understand that you are stupid, well, now you're in the right place to where you can actually start to understand
That's a
God.
hard thing for folks to admit right there.
Well, it is. I mean, that is. I mean, compared to God, we are stupid. We are utterly ignoramuses,
Yeah.
because he's an infinitely intelligent God. And the way that he created the universe, we wouldn't even begin to think
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
putting the
Yeah. Yeah.
universe together the way that it was put together. We would call everything, how the universe is created, we would call that evil,
Yeah.
because we're stupid. We are ignorant. We do not understand these things. And so, when a human, a simple-minded human wants to try to talk about the things of God with some kind of human intelligence to explain God, you're going to be wrong every time.
Mhm.
There's just no way.
Okay, so last question that I have. If you guys want to file in any questions last minute, now is the time. But I want to ask this. I asked it sort of earlier in a way, but I'm going to ask it a little bit more specifically now. Is that how do you know that that there is really only one solution if you haven't tried all the others?
Um, that sounds and like that sounds like an intelligent question, but that really is logically impossible.
Mhm.
Okay, how are you going to try every combination of everything that's ever can be done in life? So here I'm going to set aside something that works, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying every iteration of every way that's possible. And then in the end, maybe it'll come to nothing.
Yeah.
Why would I want to do that? You know, I've got what works.
Mhm.
This works. Why do I want to find another way that works?
Mhm.
So feel free to go all over the world and try everything there is under the sun. You can, feel free to do that, you know. But I have a way, and that way is not my way. It's Jesus' way. And Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. And so this is clearly a way that by design works
Yeah.
and by experience works.
Mhm.
I don't see any other reason to try anything else because there's too many other things to try. There's no second. If somebody could give me well, this is another way, but there's no such thing. There's no,
Yeah.
this is another way.
Yeah.
There isn't. There just isn't. And like I said, that's why I point out that idea of atheism, because atheism has already decided in all of its wisdom and understanding that there is not a way, period. It's come to the conclusion that there isn't a way. This is how I picture atheism and what I'll call true Christianity. In atheism is like being inside of a very bright white sphere. Okay. It looks like it goes on for forever. It looks like you could just reach your arm out and it just goes and goes and goes, but you realize everywhere that you point, you touch. And it's this really narrow, restrictive thing. Everywhere you touch, that's the end. If you don't touch anything and you just sit in the middle, it looks like it just goes on forever. But if you actually reach out with any of it, it comes to it's a dead end. Every direction, every which way it is. And true Christianity is exactly the opposite of that. Is that it may look narrow and it may look small, but every time you reach your hand out in a particular direction within the framework of Christianity, it just keeps going further and further and further and further. The wisdom and the understanding and the truth of God and who God is and what life is all about and all those kinds of things. It just isn't, it's never ending. It just continues to go further and further and further.
Mhm. There's a comment here. It sounds like insanity when you answer it that way.
I'm not sure what that's referring to, but
My question, your answer to my question. She actually possibly.
it sounds like insanity to try every way that there is. Yeah.
Well, I'm done tonight. I have no more questions. So you guys had your chance, and we will have another opportunity next week. Topic forthcoming. We will see you guys next week. Don't forget, we have service tomorrow in person. We invite you to come and join us. We'll be here at 6:30, or I'm sorry, 6 o'clock, open for prayer. And then service starts at 7. Again, in person. Come join us. Everybody's wearing masks, and we are looking forward to the day that we don't have to, but for now we will comply. And we have also our Sunday morning, Sunday evening service. And then not this weekend and not next weekend, but pretty soon we will be restarting something on Friday nights. And so
hang on that. I'm not sure yet.
Oh.
I don't know what we're going to do with it. So don't put that on hold.
Okay.
Put that on hold.
Well, stay tuned for more events. Yes. We will be doing more stuff. We will be, we are here to help. We want to help. And so if you have questions, feel free to contact us. If you have more questions about, the things we talk about, you have questions you want to just, maybe you're unsatisfied with the solutions you're trying, contact us. We want to help you. You can find our contact information through our website, and there's also more information on our YouTube page. We're glad you guys are joining us. Thanks for the questions, and we'll see you guys soon.
Okay, so I want to just throw one thing in before we actually go. My Sunday morning, my Sunday morning sermon title is God's Judgment on Anti-Vaxxers.
I'm looking forward to this.
So come and see what that's all about.
Very good. All right. We'll see you guys soon.